Blackballed. 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 What is up, everybody? My name is James DeFiore, and this is Blackballed. If you are a person like me and you can't seem to get enough about politics, and it's kind of the bane of your existence, but you still can't get enough about politics, this has been kind of a crazy 2 weeks. 2 years, but let's just go for 2 weeks. First, we have a premier in this province who wants to privatize healthcare, who is in the process of privatizing healthcare, and who also seems to think that it's okay to have his developer buddies give bags of cash to his daughter on a stag and doe, when stag and does are usually designed for people who can't really afford weddings. The whole thing sort of stinks. And also, the resignation of John Tory. What could that possibly do to either improve the way that Toronto, the municipality, relates to the province, or what kind of impending disaster could we be in for if we elect the wrong person? Here to help us unpack all of these interesting political factoids and scandals is the one, the only Cheri DiNovo. Cheri, how are you?
I'm good, James. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Are you glad that you're out of politics right now?
Well, I'm not really out. You can't get out. It's like the mafia, right? Like,
Yeah.
once you're in, you're in. So I just, I'm on the sidelines or in the back rooms, but I'm not on the front lines anymore, and that feels good for sure.
I want to play a clip of something that sort of encompasses both of the situations that I touched on in the intro. And we'll come back. It's about 90 seconds, and we'll come back and we'll get your thoughts.
Sounds good.
Well, if a lefty mayor gets in there, God help the people of Toronto. We saw it before when Rob was there. Taxes going through the roof, out of control spending, worrying about, lining the pockets of City Hall's coffers. We have a different philosophy. Our philosophy is put money back into the taxpayers' pockets, reinvest in the companies, and that's how you have a thriving economy. But folks, I'll tell you, if a left-wing mayor gets in there, we're toast. I'll tell you, it'd be a disaster in my opinion. And so I believe Mayor Tory's done a great job on economic development, making sure we build great transit systems and keeping taxes as low as he can at the rate of inflation. And that's my opinion on that.
Would you rescind those powers?
No, I'm sorry. I apologize. No, I would not rescind them. The people will hold the politicians accountable, no matter if it's a federal government, be it myself or the mayor of any city out of the 444 municipalities. That's what I love about democracy. If you don't like him or her, the leader at the time, guess what? In 4 years, you get to replace them. And that's a fantastic system. So, no, I wouldn't rescind them. Matter of fact, I want to expand them.
Now, it's Doug Ford, so I could have stopped that every 10 seconds and torn apart almost every syllable. First of all, I don't know who his communications advisor is right now, but I don't think that he should ever utter the phrase lining the pockets because of things that he's rightfully been accused of doing. But let's stop Doug Ford just for a second. He's the messenger in this. Your thoughts on John Tory? I don't know how you felt about him as mayor. I probably have a fair idea. What does that do to the landscape, the shifting landscape in Toronto politics? And is there an opportunity here, or what are we looking at, you think?
Well, first of all, I worked with John Tory. He was a leader of the Conservatives at Queen's Park when I was there, and sitting in one of those green leather seats. He's the quieter, gentler Tory. But the reality is that he's still a conservative, and you can see this in his budget, which he very, I think, undemocratically decided to just stick around for, squashing dissent as he can. and not allowing real free-ranging discussion about, for example, a bloated police budget, and not keeping warming centers open, which means people will literally freeze to death on our streets this winter. It's warm now, but that passes. In terms of Doug Ford, of course, one can't trust his word on much. I mean, this is a man who's paving over the green belt, or plans to. And the only people that serves are his developer friends, who gave over $600,000 to the Conservative Party. And that's not being investigated, interestingly enough, by the OPP. Wonder why. So that's Doug Ford. So we've got a problem both provincially and at the city level. I think it's the right thing to do that Tory is resigning, absolutely. The hope is that we get somebody in that will actually run the city for the people who live here, and not the people who just make money here. That's the hope. So we're still waiting. We're waiting.
What is it about politics that many of us, including myself, don't understand? When we see the whole Stag and Doe controversy thing, actually, two parts. First part actually is, what is it about the state of politics that I don't understand, where people were allowed to buy property inside the Greenbelt when it was supposed to be protected area, not for development? What am I missing here? Like, was there always an avenue for private enterprise to buy chunks of the Greenbelt, or was this a loophole? Like, why did that even happen in the first place?
Well, it's a very good question, and one that the NDP is asked to be investigated, of course, by both the auditor and also the ethics commissioner. So we'll see what happens there. But, really, this is a criminal matter, it seems to me. I mean, why we had one developer who was borrowing money at 21% interest to buy property in a protected area that he could never develop on. That's a pretty big red flag that he got a tip off that that property was going to become available soon. So, and the other thing that really irks me about this is, where's the news on it? It's all about John Tory now. So one of the issues here is, of course, the changing the channel. So you've got conservative media, Bell Media, who doesn't report on this at all. No reporting on the Stag and Doe and the money. I haven't heard any lately. No reporting on the Greenbelt's fallen off the map in terms of reporting. So unless you're on social media and squawking about this a lot and interacting there, you're not hearing about it. That, I think, is horrific. That really shows you how deeply money rules in terms of our mainstream media, and also, of course, politics. So again, money talks, and clearly it talks pretty loudly when it comes to conservative leadership. As I said, $600,000 isn't chump change in donations, and not to mention the money they'll make once they begin to pave over farmland and environmentally sensitive land in our province.
Yeah, I remember when Dalton McGuinty was sort of forging out this green belt thing, and one of the main pieces of criticism I heard over and over again at the time was, if you want to know where they're going to develop in the future in Ontario, look at where the Greenbelt is. Now, is that because McGuinty left the door open? When he set all this up, was it always intended to be some sort of like, oh, if you guys want to know where to invest in the future, why don't you start putting your money into the Greenbelt now, because eventually we'll open up development? What was the reason for that?
I mean, who knows what was going on there? Certainly, the Liberals were also good friends with developers, and we know that they also received a fair wad of cash from them in terms of donations back in the day. I think all that money's gone to the Conservatives now, who are more dependable at ruling in their favor. So there's that. I mean, all I can say is this. I'm one of the few born and bred Torontonians. I've only ever lived in New York, other than here. So, I mean, and I have seen the city go in my lifespan from, Toronto, the clean, like, walk around our streets these days, look at the potholes, look at the dirt. I mean, just even visually, this is not the same city. Certainly, we didn't have the homeless problem, not even close. I mean, I remember, knowing the names of most. I was a street kid myself, and knowing the names of most kids and adults that lived on the street. There were no food banks. Think about that. They didn't kick in until the 80s. You could live in the city on one salary. You could own a home. and possibly and a car. And for some in the middle class, if you got together with relatives, you could even have a cottage as well. In one generation, that's the shift. And when you look at why that shift's happened, the shift has happened because of the tax breaks we give to the wealthy. Wealthy do not pay taxes in this country anymore, and we don't go after them when they don't. Huge corporations get away without paying a cent. So that's the difference. Governments at all levels don't have the money that they used to have to be able to pay for things. I used to be able to rent a basement apartment and feed myself on what we called welfare back then. You can't do that anymore. You starve on welfare now. So that's one generation's difference. Just imagine what it's going to look like in the next generation if we let this slide happen.
Okay. Why does John Tory need to resign?
Well, John Tory needs to resign because he had an ongoing affair with a staffer, which is an ethical breach. So there's that. But I also suspect there's another shoe to fall there. Like Doug Ford had a relationship with his staffer. He didn't resign over it when he was at city council. That's pretty well known. I mean, politicians having affairs with staffers. This is not, something, brand new. It seems, and plus it apparently has been over for a while. So I suspect there's something we're not hearing. I suspect there's something behind this story other than changing the media channel, which it has done effectively. But I suspect there's something else we're going to find out, or maybe deals are being cooked up as we speak in the back room to keep him there. I don't know.
Did you find it odd that the person that he had an affair with ended up at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and then he made a point in his resignation statement to say that there was no impropriety about how she got there? Did you find that odd that he would just offer that?
Of course. I mean, it's all, it smells, right? It just all smells. Um, and as I say, I don't think it's over yet because, something's going on. And I suppose, hopefully we'll hear about it. I mean, that's the other thing. Hopefully we'll hear about it. Hopefully it will be reported. And I see in the chat somebody mentioned Colin DeMello, who does his best, but doesn't get much airtime. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty sad and sorry state of affairs, and we haven't even talked about the privatization of healthcare, which is, I think, the major blow that this province is going to experience. I mean, already we're seeing clinics that were public going private, like fertility clinics in parts of the province. I know that for cataract surgery, it's long been the case already that you can get it done in 2 weeks if you pay 5,000 or more. Other than that, you have to wait for months if you're lucky. So privatization has been ongoing, and it's just ramping up under Doug. So we'll have private surgery clinics, and clearly the idea is to make us like the United States. And we in Canada always thought we were a little bit better than that with our Medicare system. I'm amazed that there's no general strike. I'm amazed there's not more people in the street. And I certainly think that the situation warrants it. The healthcare situation alone warrants it.
Like the Greenbelt, there's another thing that just seems way above my pay grade, way above my head. If we're a country that has embraced and codified universal health care, why are private clinics even allowed to open?
Good question. And they've always been, I think, in contravention of the Canadian Health Act. They've skirted around it. There's lots of technicalities, lots of lawyers involved, of course. So this is a mark against the federal government too. Like, why aren't they cracking down on this? Why didn't Trudeau make this a requisite for giving money to the provinces? Because, again, he knows better than anyone that this money is going to be fed back to the private sector if it's in the pockets of Doug Ford. So why did he not put more stipulations there? So again, I mean, we're dealing with very wealthy, men, white men who are taking rights away from us and taking services away from us as we speak. And it's not affecting their friends. They can pay for what they need. It's going to affect a whole lot of other people. And as I say, in particular, looking at the very margins, people who are going to freeze to death on the streets this winter.
What role does the federal government have, if any, in order to sort of help stave off this two-tier attempt at our healthcare system? Because it's been oddly quiet out of Ottawa, and I can't tell if that means that they're waiting or if they are colluding.
I don't know. I don't know the backroom answer to that, but I can say that the federal government does have tools. The federal government's got the money. They could have held out. They could have, put prerequisites to getting that money in front of the provinces, and certainly upholding the Canadian Health Act would be one of them. So I don't know. I can't answer for Trudeau, and I can't answer for Doug. Um, but again, it makes one think. Who's funding the parties? That's always a question I like to ask because who pays the piper, etc.
And it's so funny when I think about donors and lobbyists. I wonder, if I could ever interview a politician right after he meets with a lobbyist or right after they accept a donor check, and just be like, "What are you going to give him for it?" People donate money for reasons, right? To shape the policy that will benefit whatever they represent. So when a developer donates 600 grand to a party, and then that party makes decisions in favor of the developer, it smells and looks like or walks and talks like a duck, but no one ever says, "Hey, that's obviously a duck." What is it about our system, and is it something that we can go back to? Like, you remember when the federal government, when the Harper government decided that the per vote subsidy wasn't the way to go anymore? I feel like he kind of destroyed democracy in a way, and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Please.
no, absolutely. You're so right about that. And I do want to give a shout out. Not all lobbyists are big developers and multinationals. You too, we are lobbyists, and so please use your lobbying power to talk to your politicians, both federal and provincial, about all of this. Make sure you get an appointment with them. Keep hammering at that door until you get them to open it or respond in some way. Speak up at all candidates meetings, leaflet your neighborhood, get involved. Like, I have seen every bill that I've managed to pass has been passed with a lot of other people who are great lobbyists who don't get paid a dime for the most part for doing what they do, who just want to stand up for the public good. So please keep that in mind. And the other point, we do have an ethics commissioner at the Ontario level, and boy oh boy, they want to know everything you're invested in, how much you have to sign these waivers. Pretty much, I think it's every time you're elected, or if not every year, about how much you own, all of that. But then this huge breach happens, which is clearly a violation on the face of it, and nothing. So one could ask, do we really have an ethics commissioner if they can't call Doug Ford to the carpet for this?
Yeah, this is kind of an aside, but our integrity commissioner system in this province is also crazy. It's a for-profit racket, and they always side with council. I'm doing a big story on this about. There's one company that represents 52 municipalities, and funny enough, every decision that they've made has fattened the pockets of themselves or the law firm that they partner with to also represent municipalities. So anytime I see the word integrity commissioner, I'm always a little bit like, oh, that's probably the opposite of what that person is. But,
yeah, I like the comment. I just have to say, I like the comment.
Yeah.
Linda, the NDP could have insisted on more public. Yeah, bravo. Yes, they could. Why didn't they? So, I'm nonpartisan here in my in my commentary. Yeah, why didn't they? Why did they not do that?
Yeah, there's that you don't want to. I love how people get really hung up on the terminology. It's like it's a coalition. It's like, I don't know. It's a couple of things that are being agreed upon behind closed doors, and then Jagmeet just goes out and starts dissing him on Twitter, but he never votes against them on the things that matter. It's really weird. But okay. Two things I want to talk about before I let you go.
Mm-hmm.
One was Bill C-11. I wanted to know what your thoughts are on that, because I actually haven't heard, even progressives that I speak with are pretty much against this bill, at least as it's written. And I was just wondering if you were a progressive that was for this bill, and if so, why or why not?
You should tell everybody what C-11 is about. Just we numbers and letters often. So.
It's a difficult bill to explain, even after reading it, and after reading Michael Geist's comments, and after reading the Senate committee, and the questions that they had. But Bill C-11 is supposed to level the playing field between online broadcasters and traditional broadcasters. And they want CanCon requirements, I believe, to be at 35%. And they want to be able to take digital content creators like myself and have us pay into a system to sort of uphold the grant system in film and television in this country. Am I basically getting it right?
Yeah. I mean, again, I am not as up to my eyeballs in federal policy as I am provincial and municipal, so I apologize for that. Um, in my mind, anything that makes someone like you have to pay, or someone like me, because I do a podcast too, and I'm also on an alternative radio station that has to pay more than they already do to stay in business, ain't such a good thing in my books. And, like people like us are I think completely more and more necessary in the broad range of media doing what we do. I mean, we are essential now because mainstream media is pretty well bought and sold by a very few conglomerates at this point. So we need alternative voices. We need to make it easy for alternative voices. And I know that also means the right wing. But I mean, that's called democracy. So let us have at it. And I know a lot of people will simply shudder if they have to pay anything more than just their time, which is what most people are paying for right now, and a few odds and ends. Again, I wouldn't vote on this without doing more of a deep dive into it. But that aspect of it makes me nervous, very nervous.
You probably saw a couple of things in the comments. I kind of feel like I know what you're going to say, but when you first heard that he resigned, and I don't know if you've heard that clip of Doug Ford before I played that for you, but when he's talking about how, if a left-wing mayor got in, it would be a disaster. And then all I keep on thinking is, will Cheri DiNovo run?
Oh no! I mean, first of all, you know how much money it takes and how much organizational wherewithal it takes.
Half a million
I mean,
dollars
this is big
ground
money.
game.
This is big money, big time. And even David Miller, when he ran, had a conservative, working on his campaign as well. So just let's say that I'm there. We have some great counselors there. I'm hoping they'll really one or other of them will step up and take this on. But I mean, the reality is, it's going to be up to us. I mean, I think we are the ones that hold politicians' feet to the fire, and we should, and we can do that every bit as easily from outside politics as we can from inside politics. And it really, as I say, I'll go back to where is the general strike? Where are the more people in the streets? Where is the uproar for healthcare? For sure, this is what makes us Canadian. My goodness, Tommy Douglas was voted the greatest Canadian not too far back for exactly that reason. So again, if you're in a union, talk to your union leadership. What the hell? Is all I can say. What's going on there? Why the silence? I mean, we have nurse strikes in New York. We have nurse strikes in the UK. So there's that. And somebody commented here, I saw that, yeah, it is not a coalition government at the federal. It is Jagmeet propping up Trudeau. And I think we could have got a lot more for that deal, a lot more.
No, I agree. I also remember when David Miller ran. I actually interviewed him in his office like 4 days or something before he left, and he said something to me that kind of troubled me a little bit. And what he said is that if you can't raise at least $200, I think at the time he said $200,000 when you're running for mayor, then you're not a serious candidate because the business community doesn't support you. And it left me so deflated. It made me feel like there's only a certain kind of person that can be elected mayor, and they have to be a business person, or at least someone that the business people think is a really great guy. And I was like, really? Is that what it takes? Is that an unfortunate byproduct of politics, or do you think that maybe that isn't necessarily the case?
I mean, it's sad, isn't it? Because I mean, small business is suffering. I mean, so it's not just about business per se; it's about big business. I mean, your mom, look at, I live close to Queen Street, my favorite street in the world. And, I'm looking at all the shuttered stores, all the shuttered retail, the one-offs, the really interesting little restaurants and things. And people really suffered during COVID. Lots of people put their life savings into these, work hard, and probably make less than minimum wage, and certainly did during COVID. And they're losing their businesses, they're losing their livelihood. They're also responsible for about 85% of new jobs in the province. So, who's helping them? They're not giving $200,000 to mayoral candidates, So who are we really working for? And I think the answer is pretty obvious in this world. But I mean, somewhere, sometimes, somehow, somebody got to get a backbone, politically. And I think that's where Doug Ford is right about one thing: we don't have to vote for them again. We do not have to vote for them again, and we don't have to wait till elections. We can make our feelings known. I mean, look at the successful education strike that happened. That worked. Why don't we do more of that? Why don't we do more of just making sure that, like you, James, thank you, getting the message out, an alternative message, and also just keeping our politicians' feet to the fire in terms of their response to us, because after all, I know that when I was, in elected office, we took calls. We tried to get back to people within 24 hours at my constituency office. We didn't always succeed, but at least would send them a note saying, we'll get back to you soon. So let's get some responsibility out of our currently elected politicians, and particularly the conservative ones. Don't let them off the hook.
No, I tend to agree, and I'll leave you with this one last question. It just popped into my head, but I think it's worthwhile. We had a 33% voter turnout in the last provincial election. It's one of the reasons, and I may be reaching here, but I find polling to be so damaging to the electorate. I find that it doesn't reflect voter opinion; it shapes it. And oftentimes the way that it manifests is a lack of voter turnout, because people are like, oh, Ford's in a cakewalk. No point in voting. Is polling damaging to the electoral process?
Well, absolutely. And that's why it's banned in many regions during an election. It's not allowed. Remember, it's only a snapshot. But yeah, you're right. It's demoralizing, and it's not always accurate, as we know, too. But also, I think, people are enraged and people are suffering. Like, the average salary in Canada is like 50-something thousand. Well, you can't live in any of our cities on that salary. Good luck with, and for the first time in most of North America, kids are doing way worse than their parents. I don't know any young people that can afford to, buy anything in the city. I mean, people are barely getting by on a lot of debt. This is not a sustainable situation. So who's going to answer to them? I think we really need to kind of step up our political game and start answering to people and start saying, this system isn't working. Let's take a page out of, PP's book, and let's have big rallies. Let's talk about the elites. Let's use those words he uses, but let's use them honestly. Instead of being paid by the elites, let's talk about the elites, and let's talk about how the wealthy don't pay taxes and you and I do. Let's talk about that. This is not fair, and people should be really angry about this, and people are. It's just that rage is being channeled by the right and not by the left. So come on, lefties, let's get going.
Cheri, you're awesome. Thank you so much. By the way, I'm going to give your book another plug because well, it's awesome.
Thank you.
The Queer Evangelist. You can grab that anywhere you grab books, I guess, Amazon or something. And listen, I would love to have you back, because I think that your voice and your mind and the way that you think politically is a voice that needs to be heard right now, because I think a lot of us are really drifting into that apathetic place. We're worried about our lives. We're looking inward instead of outwards. And I'd love to have you back just to talk about this kind of stuff a little bit more. So
yeah, absolutely. Anytime. We have a planet to save. So yeah, get busy.
Awesome.
See you, everybody.
Cheri. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Cheri DiNovo, that was awesome. And this, by the way, is going to be a strange day, because you go from that. She's lovely. She's fierce and smart, and she's politically savvy. And then in 20 minutes, I'm interviewing Chris Sky. I don't know. It's like, what would you call that? Juxtaposition day here on Blackballed? Opposite day? Bizarro hour? I don't know. I love her. And again, I don't agree with her politically on everything, but listen to her talk. She's sensible. She cares about people. And I'm really, what's kind of funny is that in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had to, I built this kind of like mighty hump of like stubbornness when it comes to lefties, because I get irked and I cringe a lot when they talk. And then I hear Cheri talk, and while some of the things that she said I don't necessarily agree with, like, I don't think every conservative is bad, and she kind of makes it seem like they are. I don't think every lefty is good. She kind of makes it seem like they are. But you know what? I don't care. She's smart, and she seems to care about people, and I can tell that her heart is in the right place, and she's got the biggest brain of any politician I think I know in this country. And I wish she would run for mayor, but the fact that she's not, I'm glad that she's going to come back on the show. It would just be nice. I'd have her once a week just to like talk politics with her, because I think she's that worthwhile to speak with. Okay, in about 19 minutes, barring any unfortunate accident, Chris Sky will be on the show. I'm going to preamble this. I'm going to do this again probably after I'm done interviewing him. I almost canceled the interview today after it was brought to my attention that somebody that I care about, somebody that I know, was a little bit irked at the idea that I would have Chris Sky on because of his views on the Holocaust, which I didn't know until today. But he is basically, I don't know if a Holocaust denier is the right term for him, but he questions the amount of Jewish people that were killed, and he sort of downplays it, and then says that now the Jewish people use it as some sort of racket. I'll post the comments when he's on, because I am going to challenge him on this. And I decided to go through with the interview anyways, because it's not really about the questionable views of the guest. It's about being able to hear people with questionable views say their views first person, not typed in a social media post or not retold by pundits, but from them. He's got a trial going on right now, so he's kind of current in that sense. He might run for mayor. It's hilarious, but that's also kind of current. But I think I'm going to go on a limb here and say that he's not watching this right now. But even if he is, I am going to spend the second half of that interview challenging this person on the views that he's already said. If it turns into like on his end, I'll just let him go. I'll just look at the camera, which is something I never do, like I'm trying to do right now without laughing because it feels silly, and I'll just let him go. You guys know me. I'm cheeky, and I have a sharp fucking tongue when I want to have one. Normally, I don't do that to guests, but I might make an exception. And I just want to let everyone know that it's never an endorsement of anyone's views. Look, I just talked to Cheri DiNovo. I bet you if we really unpacked what we believe in, I probably agree with her maybe 70% of the time. But that 30% of the time isn't going to be me cussing her out because of that 30% of the time. But a Holocaust denier, you might see me cuss him out a little bit, but I'm going to try to do so very professionally, I think is what I'm trying to say. So we'll see you in about 15 minutes, and hopefully that interview will not be too much of a circus. So we'll see you in about 15 minutes on Blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.